Hello and welcome to another video by Flash Jazz Cat. First one in a while, but hopefully the first of many. In this video we're going to have a look at a couple of SD card hard disk solutions. They're both dual SD card hard disk solutions for the Atari ST. But before we do that, let me take a moment to mention the sponsor for this video, PCBWay. If you are in need of PCB prototyping or fabrication, why not do it the easy way and visit PCBWay.com, where you can get an instant quote, upload your PCB files, and enjoy a turnaround as fast as 24 hours. PCBWay offer a huge range of services, including CNC machining and 3D printing. So if you're in need of PCB manufacture, consider PCBWay today. And the first one we're going to look at is the UltraSatan here, which you can see is available from Retro Lemon. It's also available from Lotharic. If you're an EU customer, obviously if you're in the UK, you're going to need to buy it from Retro Lemon. As you can see, it's £90.95, and Jakob from Retro Lemon sent me an UltraSatan cased unit for review purposes. He sent me that several months ago, and it's taken me a while to get around to doing this for reasons beyond my control. It's going to be a bit chaotic because I'm very rusty on the Atari ST and setting up stuff with the Atari ST, but that's good in a way because I'm coming at the thing from an uninitiated perspective, so I can relate to somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing. So we're going to fumble through and see if we can set this thing up. As you can see at the bottom of the page, we've got various resources, we've got links to the various drivers. I have purchased Peraputnik's hard disk driver, which works with the UltraSatan and several other devices. HD driver, it's rather expensive. I would buy it nevertheless if I ever had a need for it, but it does seem rather specialized, so I may try out the trial at some point. I don't use the ST a lot, so I think the Putnik driver is €10. We'll quickly visit the page anyway. So here we've got the Peraputnik homepage. We've got various videos and we've got instructions on how to set things up there, and it's very reasonable, the commercial version. €10 I think it is for the basic driver, and 15 if you want virtual floppy disk functionality as well. So you can have a read through that and see if you want to purchase his driver. And the main advantage from my point of view is that this driver makes it very, very simple to have fat partitions on the card which are compatible with the ST and the PC. So you can easily transfer information between the two platforms. So that's that driver. And the other driver we're going to have a look at here is the ICD Pro driver, and Jookie, who's responsible for the UltraSatan, has a nice setup guide right here, which you can step through if you want to use the ICD Pro driver. But I think there's a way of having compatible fat partitions, possibly using Big DOS. I haven't got into that yet. If there's a need to have a follow-up video where we go into this kind of stuff, we can do that, no problem at all. And the other thing we're going to look at today is this device, which is the SD4ST, and as you can see, that is available on eBay for £65 or thereabouts, plus your postage here. That's in the UK. I didn't know a thing about this device until a few weeks ago. So another community member, Dan Baverstock, has purchased one of these things, and he sent it up here for me to set it up and have a look at and take it apart and do all that good stuff, which is exactly what I've got to do. Now this device does have a home page as well, which I eventually found, which describes the hardware, and as you can see, it's got a 3D printed case. It's a very nice looking thing. It's a bit cheaper than the UltraSatan, and but we're going to see if there are any drawbacks or pros and cons between the two things. So yeah, that's what we're going to have a look at here. So without further ado, I think we should dive into it. Right, so the first one we're going to look at here is the UltraSatan, and as you can see, it's a very nicely packaged metal case device, very well presented. It's got dual slots, it's got a power switch on the back, which is always nice. So there's your power adapter at the back there. Unfortunately, it's not USB-C. I wish everything was USB-C now. But so that goes in like that. So that's the your power supply. We're going to have a little look inside of it. This is the adapter. The actual connectors for the ASCII port are rather hard to get hold of, so they've made this nice little, quite sturdy adapter. So that's a bridge device between the ASCII port and the ribbon cable. The ribbon cable, of course, going in the back of here. So let's have a look inside. You can also get a version of the UltraSatan which has it's not in this case device, it's the, I think they call it the Mini. That will look quite appealing as well. That just sits, that plugs directly into the back of the ST. It's not cased, but it's a small board. So here's the UltraSatan PCB. We'll take it out of the case as well. Might as well go the whole hog. So it's a very nice case, as you can see. It's really very solid. So it's going to be very durable. So what we got on the back here, some kind of FPGA, I presume. Analog devices. So we can look that up later on and see what it is. So we've got the RTC battery in here because this has a real-time clock built into it. I'm assuming this is a programming header for firmware updates and such like. There's a switch here which is unpopulated. I don't know what that's for. And of course we've got the dual SD card slot. So there's not really much to the board. Let's put it back into the case. I'm very satisfied with the quality of this this PCB. Very nice indeed. So this is the SD4ST device, which was bought on eBay. It's a little bit cheaper than the UltraSatan 2, perhaps for obvious reasons, because of course this has a metal case. It's a little bit more professional, but I mean this is quite nice. It's got the 3D printed case, is quite well finished. I've taken it apart before, so I'm going to take it apart again to show you what it's like. So I've got two screws at the back here. I don't want to take it apart too many times because you probably end up stripping these threads if you do it too many times, but I will take it apart so you can see what's what. And there's two strain relief screws here around the connector. I quite like the way that the connector's been 3D printed as well. That's quite nice. So there's the front off. It is quite a nice little enclosure. And this is the board. So this is interesting. It seems to be some sort of Arduino-like project board, which has just been, it's on a carrier with a couple of SD card connectors as well. And we can push this out here. I know it's possible. Alright, there we go. It needed a bit of persuasion to get out the other side. So there's the other end of the housing. And there's the board. I'll give you a nice close-up of the board. Alright, so there's the top side of the board. That's the chip there. Hopefully you can see that. And of course we've got an RTC on here. Now the RTC's had the chip markings removed there. Sanded off for whatever reason, I don't know. That's the battery. It's probably got NVRAM settings, and obviously that powers the clock when the device is switched off. And that's pretty much all there is to it. And this is by Zibi Labs, and it does have a website which I'll flash up on the screen as well. So there is some level of support for this device, and it's pretty cost effective, and it does seem to work, and I'll show you how when we plug it into the ST. So let's put it back together now and try both of these devices out. Now this is the ST I upgraded to 1 megabyte in a previous video. It's an STFM. I've got a 4160 STE, but it's in such rotten shape at the moment it needs to be retrobraided. So anyway, if we have a little look at the UltraSatan here, we've got the main unit here. It's got two SD card slots and some activity lights on the front. That's the ASCII connector on the back. We've got a power switch there, which is a nice touch, and we've got the USB power connector. So there's a transition a transitional connector which plugs into the back of the ST here, and the ribbon cable goes in here. So one end of the ribbon cable goes in there, other end of the ribbon cable goes into the UltraSatan, and we push the hard disk connector into the back of the ST like so, and then we rig our power connector up like so. Alright, so if we're going to use the ICD driver to set up the UltraSatan 2, and this method will be broadly similar for both bits of hardware, the recommended course of action is to download a disk image. Which you just put straight on the card. And the piece of software that they recommend you use for this is called the USB image tool. I did try Rufus for this and it didn't work, so I'm going to use the USB image tool. And that's it right there. And what we do, I've got the 1GB SD card in the card reader on the PC. So you need to run this as administrator, it appears. Right, so I've switched to device mode, and there we've got the card, finally. And we have to go to restore, and that'll ask us for the disk image. There it is. Do we want to restore this? Yes, we do. And I think that's written that image to the card. So now we can pull the card out and go back to the ST. If we now boot the machine with this card inserted, and here we go, good. So that's actually booting from that disk image there. And we go over to hard disk. So we've booted from the 1GB card. So this is a method that you can use if you haven't got a Gotek or a floppy drive of any kind whatsoever. This is the method described in the handbook. Does assume you've got some sort of floppy disk image with the ICD driver on it. What I've done is I've written a temporary image onto the 1GB card, and I'm going to use that to boot from, and I'm going to use that image to partition the second card. So what we want to run now to partition the second card here is the ICD FMT program, which is that one, and we get an error. Now this happens for reasons that I don't know. This error occurs completely at random. I don't know why. Right, so I took the other card out just so I could get it to boot. So remember, the one we want to partition is on ID 0. Let's see if we can run that ICD format program again. I have no idea why it doesn't work sometimes, and we get toss error 35 again. Alright, I found a card that actually works here. I tried both of these SanDisk 2GB cards. Didn't want to know, so I finally managed to boot this. So I'm going to use this Panasonic card here. This is the one I'm going to actually prepare. So let's see if I can run ICD format this time. See if it'll run from the, I think it's a Lexar card or something. Come on, come on. Right, so what we seem to have is a compatibility problem of some sort here. I've got two cards, two of these SanDisk 2GB SD cards. I don't know if it's the card capacity that it's taken exception to, because 2GB SD cards are a bit of an abomination. But no dice with those ones, so I've used a 1GB Lexus card. So the card I'm going to format is this left one here, because I booted from this one, so I'm going to prepare this one. It's a 4GB Panasonic card, and it's in slot 0. So we're going to continue there. And it has been previously formatted, so it should find that it is. Now, one thing I need to change straight away, because I want to 0 the verify pass, because if you do verify pass, it is unbelievably slow. Right, so having set verify passes to 0, I'm going to click partition, Right, and this already has partitions on it, that's fine. Right, so I've cleared the partition table just to give the impression that this card wasn't partitioned previously. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a number of partitions on this card, and I'm going to do that by pressing the default button. So what you actually end up with is a small boot partition of 5 megabytes, and then a number of 16 megabyte partitions. I'm not going to enable them all, I'm going to disable quite a few of them actually. So having done that, I'm going to click partition entire hard disk. That's fine, yes, continue, and it starts to write out the partition structure. So it's written out the fat structures on the individual partitions. Now I believe it's writing out the partition table proper, which will be the master boot record. So that's done. Okay. And I think, having done that, we can quit here. And then what we want to do okay, so what I realised here is that it's much easier to actually follow the guide using a floppy image in Drive A. I tried to use the method with the pre-prepared ISO on a card, but I got into knots when it came to copying the ICD boot program over to Drive C. That'll be me being an idiot and just not understanding how to get around that problem. What I found is that once you'd partitioned the new card, that one would appear as the hard disk partition C, and I couldn't get at the files on the installation card. So what I've done is I've got myself a disk image of the ICD Pro driver. That's actually a German disk image. So that's on the Gotek as Drive A. So we've just booted from the floppy. So if we open the floppy drive up, and then we want to go to ICD format, which is this one here, and this should pick up the card. It's just much simpler, I find, to just stick to the guide verbatim for now, rather than deviate from it. I'm probably no more familiar with this stuff than you are watching the video. Right, so it found that. We're going to click continue. Now, before we proceed any further here, what we must do is change verify passes, and we're going to change that to 0, because if we don't do that, the whole thing's just going to take ages, because it verifies the entire card basically after it writes the partition table. So with that zeroed, we can click partition. Now this has already been partitioned, this card, so I'm going to clear it just to give us the impression that it hasn't been partitioned before. So this is what you would basically get if it was a fresh, uninitialized card. And I have figured out that the easiest thing to do here is to click the default button, and what that does is fill the card up with 16 megabyte partitions, and there's one 5 megabyte special partition at the beginning. I'm going to deactivate most of these actually. No particular reason, I just want 3 partitions at the top of the card. Right, and it's deactivated. That must surely be a bug. I didn't turn those off. It turned itself off. Never mind. Right, so there's 3 active partitions there. And once you're happy with what you've seen here, we click partition entire hard disk. One or more partitions are not enabled, that's fine, don't care. Right, so here, this is the last chance to change your mind. Proceeding past this screen will destroy any data that's already on the hard drive, and then you get a reminder of the ID and the LUN, so we know we're writing with the right card. Well, there's only one card in, so we can't go wrong there. And now it starts to write out the formatted fat partitions and the partition table structure. Successfully completed. So we can OK that. You can make a note of them. It gives the opportunity to print them out if you want. I'm not going to do that. So we're done with that part now. So
The card's partitioned. I think we need to do a reset here actually before we proceed. Right, so the next thing we need to do, the system won't boot from this card yet. We still need to add the ICD boot sys driver to it. So we're going to go back into the floppy drive image. And we have to run hdutil.prg, which is over there. Relogging hard drives. Now this is going to ask us, we can set the hard disk boot partition to C. Well, that's fine. But simply going through this process, if we just click OK, it should copy the driver. There we go. Use this file, yes. So it's now copying that driver file over to the C partition. Alright. And you can set configuration options after you've done that. There's nothing here that I want to particularly change, so we'll come back out of that. So if we quit that, and then we eject that floppy, so I'll turn the machine off. I'll pull the SD card out entirely. And now when I turn the machine on, it should boot from the card. Somehow we've got 5 partitions. Now I think that's the bug in that program. When I re-enabled partitions 2 and 3, it seemed to also enable a couple of partitions higher up the table. So there's obviously a bug in that partitioning program where the enable and disable partitions, it enables more partitions further down the table as well. That's fun. So anyway, there's our hard disk partition. There's ICD boot sys. Oh, okay, I think I've figured it out here. I have to actually click on an icon, and then I can go to install disk drive, and then can I go D, 2, install. Did that work? Or not? Yes. Right, so is that different? Yeah, there we go. That's it. So that's how you do it. So let's do the third one as well. So we highlight that, install disk drive. We're going to call that one E because it is drive E. And then we'll go down here and we'll put 3, install, and there we go. Excellent. So there you have it. So that's UltraSatan installation. So having had a look at the UltraSatan 2, I think it's time we had a look at the second device, which is the SD4ST. Now this is the eBay bought device that was loaned to me by Dan Baverstock. So let's plug that one in and see how we get on. It does come with a an SD card, which I've popped in, and I'll power it up with that to begin with, just to see what the out-of-the-box experience is actually like. So if we disconnect the UltraSatan here, the connector is pretty stiff actually. It's very secure. There we go. It's out. So the SD4ST goes obviously in the same connector. It's a much easier fit, probably because it's a plastic housing. And of course we need power in the side. Probably get the orientation wrong. That's one of the great things about USB-Cs, you can't put it in the wrong way up. So there we go. And that little ping you heard is just the, because this is an actual USB device as well, so that was Windows registering that USB device. So this is basically out of the box, nothing done to it whatsoever. And we just switch it on, turn the monitor on as well, and see what happens. So this is the, to be fair, you could probably, I'm sure there's a pre-formatted SD card available for the UltraSatan 2, and I certainly don't want expert. Ah, see it. Here we go. So this is the, now I'm assuming this is a demo version of the Putnik driver, presumably, because that's a licensed product. I have bought it anyway, so we can use it to set this up. So as you can see, we've got a working hard disk already. I don't know what the limitations are on the functionality with the trial, what I'm assuming is the trial version of the hard disk driver. I don't know. Disk util, what have we got here? So there's a lot of handy tools on the card that you get with the SD4ST. Right, so I've grabbed a micro SD card that I don't mind erasing. So what we're going to do is we're going to take out the one that's provided and put this one in. And I've put the... Hang on. Is that the wrong way? There we go. Right, and I've put the USB thumb drive back into the Gotek. And we're going to try and partition this and set it up in exactly the same way as we did with the UltraSatan 2. So, power the machine on. So this should boot. Here we go. Unrecognized unit. Right, so I get the feeling here let's see now. I've got a funny feeling that this driver, the ICD driver, isn't going to be compatible with the SD4ST. That was quite unexpected. So it looks like it's polling for... yeah, that's the wrong application. Help if I run the correct application, of course. Scanning for SCSI devices. So this will be the moment of truth. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's working. Oh, so maybe it is going to work. All right then. All right, partition. Oh, so it is going to work. All right then. I think what I saw there that threw me for a minute when it said it saw unrecognized device, that must have been the empty slot. So silly me. How come this is already partitioned? How strange. Right, so I'm going to clear that one. I'm going to go default like I did before. Exactly the same. In fact, I'll not bother clearing these because we know this is buggy anyway, so turning them on and off is a waste of time. Now I forgot to do something here, didn't I? I forgot to change that verify pass. You mustn't forget that. So you can, if you forget to do that, you can go into parameters up there and you can change that. Now I seem to remember that we now click that. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Right, we'll see how this gets on. You can see the little activity light there flashing at the back. Right, so that's finished correctly. And cancel that. Quit that. Let's reset the machine first. So we should see the hard disk here, I think. Oh, there we go. There's all our partitions. So yeah, so that's slot 1, unrecognized unit. Okay, there's the hard disk. So the last thing we need to do is set the put the driver on the disk and set the auto boot, which we do with HD util. Set auto boot, that one there. Okay, it's working away. So now after this is done, we should boot directly to the hard disk without the Gotek. So I can take that out now. In fact, I'll quit first. Take the drive. So USB pen drive's out. So we've just got the card in here, and we'll reset the machine again. There we go. Looks like it's going to boot, and there we are. And there we have a system with a hard disk. Now, obviously with the ICD driver, the situation is the same. I don't know about Big DOS and stuff like that. I don't know enough at this moment to actually install that. But we don't have the capability of taking that card out and putting it in the PC card reader Obviously we can use the USB pen drive and the Gotek to transfer information across, but it would be nice if we had PC compatible DOS partitions on the card. So that's the ICD Pro driver, works with both devices. And we're going to use the Putnik driver. I'm going to try and get that set up, and I think what that allows is PC access to the fat partitions. So on the left card here is I've imaged using the same program, USB image tool, a pre-provided image which the Putnik driver provides, which has all the tools on it. So we're going to boot from that one, and this is the card I want to partition. So hopefully it'll boot from this one on the left. So we should get some activity here. There we do. Aha! There we go. Right, so it's booted off that card. Right, what we got here? This is D. We've got a RAM disk. Oh, crikey. This is, I'll have to read the instructions here. What's this? Let's run this and see what happens. GemDOS part. Right, so this is the partition tool. I have no idea what to do. How do I get to the other card? Okay, so I think I've figured this out just by glancing at the documentation. The ASCII device number, so I've got a card in the second slot that I want to actually partition. I've booted from ASCII, I keep saying ASCII, I've booted from ASCII 0. I want to actually be on ASCII 1. Right, so to refresh it I have to change the ID, then read it. So this is the boot card. And then if I select ASCII 1 and then click that again, this is the card I want. Right, okay. 16 megabytes, 16 megabytes, 16 megabytes, whatever. Right. See, they're all compatible FAT16. Right, okay. Sounds right to me. Partition and in it all. Yes. Oh, sorry. Go on. Go on, go on, go on.
Go on, go on, go on, go on, go on, go on, go on.
Is that done? Right, I've figured out we have to run the auto boot installer. I think this is going to be 1. Aha! Right. I think we've got somewhere here. I want 1. I want I. Installed. Yes! Now what? Do I reboot? Can I take that card out and reboot the system and get a hard disk? Come on! Yes! Ah ha ha ha! There we go. There's the partition, and God willing, this is actually readable on the PC. This is brilliant. Okay, so I put the card in the PC card reader. I copied some files across to it, and let's see if they show up here. This is pretty good, actually. I kind of fumbled through it. I'm sorry about that, because I know Peter went to all the trouble of writing the documentation and making some videos about how to use this thing, but I've just kind of muddled through because I found it a little bit hard to follow. Ah, here we go. Okay, so that's the system volume information file that Windows left there. That's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in this. Aha! So, we appear to have an UltraSatan compatible RTC, I think. We must have. This is interesting. Set new date. Oh, that's very interesting. So let's just try and set the time. I was deliberately, well, that's wrong anyway. So I'm going to set it to 31. Oh.
Okay.
Enter.
Right, so let's see if it kept the time that I've just set there. That's very good. So this, it seems that the UltraSatan clock utilities work with the SD4ST. So this appears to completely duplicate the RTC of the UltraSatan. So what I'll do next is I'm going to try this card. I'm not going to go through the whole rigmarole of repartitioning this card because I've kind of showed you how sort of showed you how how Peter's driver works. I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to put the card into the adapter here. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to put the UltraSatan back in, and I'm going to try and boot this card on the UltraSatan and hope it works. One thing I'm worried about is that it's a 2 GB card. I'm not entirely sure that the UltraSatan likes 2 GB cards, but we'll see. Ah, there we go. Excellent. It booted. So this is a 2 GB card. It's a micro SD card. So I think that the UltraSatan was just a little bit fussy about what card it wanted to play with. So here we are again. So this is a completely different hard disk device. This is the same card I prepared on the SD4ST. Let's go into the clock tool. So this needs to be set anyway. I don't know what this is all about. So set the date. So it's 2020. So let's see if that's stored. So let's check. I don't know offhand actually if the SD4ST has its own proprietary clock setting tools. I should have a look. Right, so let's see if it kept the time. And it did. Excellent. So I would go as far to say that these two devices here are almost functionally identical. Well, I suppose it would make more sense to say that this device here is a work-alike of this device here, because I'm sure this one came first. I wonder if that's got anything to do with the fact that the chip ID on the RTC has been scratched off on this one, as I showed you before. How interesting. Okay, so I'm on the SD4ST website here, the home page. I'm just trying to find some information here. Right, it's RTC. Ah, here we go. So setting the time and date the UltraSatan way. So it seems the UltraSatan way is the only way. I will start with, I present the most universal way, which is to use SD4ST API, which is compatible with UltraSatan. So it's a work-alike API. The main idea was to hook up to the existing standards available to the Atari community rather than make another extension and specific SD4ST firmware. Well, that seems fair enough. SD4ST, in terms of handling the date and time, is functionally identical with the UltraSatan device. He does get out of actually having to present his own tools to set the date and time. Interesting, interesting. So there you have it really. That is my kind of chaotic introduction to these two devices, the UltraSatan case device and the SD4ST. I don't think there's a lot to choose between them. Maybe somebody who's more familiar with the hardware will be able to comment, correct me on that. I don't know. Are there many people who've used the SD4ST before? I don't know. I'm not too sure how old that device is. I know the UltraSatan is very well established, and it's obviously set the bar, it's set the standards for what's come after it, because the SD4ST is, as we've seen, it's kind of a work-alike device, kind of a re-implementation. It's a bit cheaper. It's if you prefer the self-contained plastic enclosure pushed in on the back, but of course on the Retro Lemon website you've also got the UltraSatan Mini. Now the UltraSatan Mini. It's a wee bit cheaper than the case one, but it's more in line with what the SD4ST does. It's got the dual micro SD slots. It doesn't have a case, which is a bit of a shame. And so I hope you enjoyed this look at these two hard disk devices. And I'm delighted to say that despite this enormous hiatus in video production that we've been enduring here for all kinds of different reasons, we've got a lot going on in real life, as it were. And I've had an enormous amount of problems with noise nuisance in this neighbourhood recently, which has taken up a fair bit of my time, unfortunately. And we've got a lot of different houses changing hands, and we're overlooked by about a dozen different houses. It's very uncertain times, because obviously I need peace and quiet, particularly when I'm, well, preferably all the time when I'm working, but particularly when I'm making videos. But never mind, we'll get there eventually. So I do apologise again, as I always keep doing, for the lack of videos recently, but we're going to try and address that. I'm just going to have to rise above it and just get on with it. And yes, so we've got a couple of new patrons. We've got Extal Delphon, who signed up, I think it was about a month ago. And we've also got Brent Carroll, who became a patron in May. Very, very much appreciated indeed. And I hope that I can justify the support by making more video content and more interesting video content. So having said that, I won't draw it out any longer. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video and you'd like to see more, please give it a like, and feel free to share the content if you think it would be of interest to others. I will see you in the next video.